If the Halos are going to beat the Dodgers, what do they need to do? We're going to share all the details with you. It's time to get locked on with Mike and John, and this is Locked On Angels.
You are Locked On Angels, your daily Los Angeles Angels podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. You can find us anywhere you get your podcast, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and now on SiriusXM by searching Locked On Angels. And the best way to help us out is by giving us a rate and a review. And those watching on YouTube, make sure that you're subscribed and click the bell to be notified every time a new episode drops. We actually just passed 5,000 subscribers, so thank you to everybody that does that. And today's show is brought to you by our friends at the Game Time app. Download the Game Time app right now, create an account, and use our code Locked On MLB for $20 off your first purchase. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed.
Thank you for being here for this episode of Locked On Angels, where it's your team every day. What's going on, everybody? You've got the First Brothers here with you, aka the Super Halo Bros. My name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Hey, we're very happy to be talking Angels baseball with you Monday through Friday, every single week. Hey, Locked On Everydayers, join us for Fan Mail Friday and get your questions in. And we'd like for you to share your smart fan takes on how the Angels will finish in the first half. So smart takes only. Let's go. Hey, on today's show, we're going to get you ready for the Dodgers series, which starts tonight. But first, Mike, breaking news.
Rendon goes to the IL. We'll talk about that. And Kevin Padlo has been called up. Padlo is a 26-year-old infielder. He spent some time with the Pirates, the Giants, the Mariners last season, and he's played at Salt Lake this season. Johnny, a pretty good slash line, 273, 396, a 555 slugging percentage, which is fantastic. And then 34 games he's played total. John, his WRC plus, weighted runs created plus, is 123. The average is 100, so he is doing really well. John, he's higher than David Fletcher, Trey Cabbage, and Joe Adell.
Really?
And he is been called up. He's going to be an infielder. My guess would be that he probably won't play too much with some of the other infielders that are in the mix on the big league club. But the question that everybody is wondering about is, why not Fletch, John? So why not Fletch?
Why not Fletch, indeed? Listen, Mike, I actually was really excited at the prospect of David Fletcher coming back and being part of this team. But as I pumped the brakes on that a little bit, it kind of made sense to me because Rendon's IL stint is only going to be for 5 more games, right? Because it's retroactive to last week because they had to make that decision to put him on the IL. He's been out since Friday when they began the Kansas City series. So it will mean that he can come back next Monday. So again, he'll be off for those next few games. And so really it's kind of like, it's a quick stint, right?
Yeah.
It's not going to be that long before Rendon can come back. Fletcher also isn't on the 40-man roster. And that's actually something that I didn't quite understand when they did that. They actually took him off the 40-man roster, so it would require a move to get him back on the 40-man roster. So basically you have your 26 players in the majors, and then the remaining 14 are your reinforcements that are available to you from AAA, AA, wherever. You can call them up, no problem. They can come to your team. The issue here with Fletcher being all the way off the 40-man roster is that they would have to move somebody off that 40-man roster. And there's a couple moves they can make. They can move some guys to the 60-day IL, like maybe Gio Urshela or Jose Suarez, who hasn't been around for a while. Recently, they did that with Max Stassi, but it wasn't that Stassi had 60 more days ahead of him. It's every day that he's been off so far counts toward the 60-day IL. All of that to say, once Rendon comes back up, they can't send Fletch down again without DFAing him, which would also mean possibly losing him, paying his contract if that happens. The issue with that is Fletcher has to stick around in order to get the remainder of his contract, I believe. It's kind of an interesting contract. So again, it's disappointing because you want to see David Fletcher back up with his team, especially given how well he's been playing in AAA. He really found it again, Mike. He found his swing. He got back to doing what he does very well, hitting for a good slugging percentage for David Fletcher, doing all the things that Gio Urshela was doing for us, basically.
Yeah.
But we do have Stefanik on this team, who is kind of another David Fletcher / Gio Urshela. And I'm interested to see what Kevin Padlo can do. Again, that 123 weighted runs created plus, very significant there. And if you're unfamiliar with that term, just think of it as 23% better than league average. So yeah, he's an infielder who can play where we need him. But again, with such a short time on the Rendon IL stint, I don't think he's going to be necessary for too long.
Yeah, I agree. And it would be great to see Fletch back up, but there's a lot of mechanisms that would have to be pulled, levers that would have to be pulled, right?
We both have to push our buttons at the same time.
Yes, right? You turn your key, Maura. Turn your
Yes.
key. So I get it. I get why people are a bit frustrated. It would be great to see him back up. I don't think that you want to mess with the 40-man unless you just absolutely have to, and make moves like this unless you absolutely have to. And I know that the name Louis Rengifo has been thrown out there. I get that people are a bit frustrated with Rengifo. However, the Angels are, I think, 33-17 with him in the starting lineup. And he's been a good backup for us. And he's played really well in games where we needed him to play really well. Yeah, he's not the defensive guy that Fletch is and Neto is. However, he is a sufficient backup to Drury and some of those guys. And so I get why he's still there. John, the big news, though, is that Rendon is on the IL again. And he got hit in the wrist. If you're not familiar with what happened, got hit in the wrist. The x-rays showed no break, which was awesome. His joint is still really swollen, though. And you knew he was hurting because when he was in that game, I think he bunted with 2 strikes. It was like what happened with Fletch last year when Fletch couldn't swing the bat. So you knew that he was really struggling with swinging the bat. Johnny, my question to you is, are you frustrated with Rendon? Are you frustrated with the medical updates from the Halos, or are you just frustrated because he's hurt again? And when he's in the lineup, the Angels are actually really successful, especially with runners in scoring position.
I'll start by saying I don't think I'm frustrated with Rendon. You take 85 off your wrist bone. I thought it was his surgically repaired wrist. Fortunately, it wasn't. Someone pointed that out on Twitter, which was very helpful. So thank you for that. But at the same time, that's got to hurt.
Yeah.
and I'm not arguing with that at all. I think what was frustrating to me is just the information that gets passed down of, hey, we're going to see how he is by Saturday. And, Sunday might be optimistic, but we'll see where we're at on Tuesday. And then Monday comes with the news that they're going to put him on the IL. Again, it's only 5 days. It's not a huge stint. He's already been off for the past weekend, which is fine. But I just think that the information that gets passed down and the way it gets passed down is by virtue of the fact that beat writers can't talk to the medical staff. They can't talk to anybody. That's a John Carpino edict. And so all the news comes from Phil Nevin, which is fine. But we've run into this issue before where, Trout will be fine. It probably just needs like 2 weeks off. Then he's off for 4 months.
Right.
Then last year, it's, he's got some back problems. Then he's out for a month and a half. Right. So it's just, pardon me for grating my teeth at these medical updates that are super optimistic. And then all of a sudden we wake up to the news of, well, he's going on the IL again. Yeah. And it's frustrating. It's frustrating as fans. I understand some people have the opinion that the Angels don't owe us anything when it comes to these updates, but I'm like, but we're fans, and that's journalism, that's reporting, that's what this is.
And to your point, and I know that there was a discussion on Twitter yesterday.
Oh, there was
that
a
very idea. And to your point, though, every other team gives medical updates. Yeah. And so this is just, it's a bit odd that we don't get medical updates. And then when we do, it is what you just said. He's going to be fine. And then we find out like his head fell off, and so that's the thing that
his head fell off.
And so that's the thing that gets a bit frustrating is like, well, man, if we just knew that maybe perhaps he was probably going to need a longer time, then awesome. Yeah. And pardon me if I wanted to know if one of our key players was going to be available for this Dodgers series. Right. And it would be great to have him in the lineup because again, he's great and he helps with runners in scoring position. Ironically, 100%. He actually hasn't been great in the lineup when the Angels have been great, but his presence in the lineup actually helps Trout, Ohtani, and the guys around him.
And I'll speak to this too. The fact that he remained in that game against Texas because they were short Drury. Neto had just been hurt. Gio got hurt. He stayed in the game, Mike, to play defense at third base because we needed him to. And if that's not an example of a gamer, I mean, he went up there and embarrassed himself at the plate because he couldn't swing the bat and tried to bunt and just nothing was happening. But he stayed in the game. So everybody who sees all these things about Rendon not trying or not caring, that tells me that he cares a lot, that he stayed in the game at third base and didn't bail on the team, right? So I'm not somebody who tries to be a body language expert. I'm not a fan of looking at somebody and being like, well, they obviously don't like being in Anaheim, or you know what I mean? Like, I'm not an expert at body language. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not anything like that. So I just don't pretend to do that either. I see what I see in front of me. And I saw somebody who was a gamer on Thursday against the Rangers, staying in that game, trying to help the Halos win. Hey, coming up on Locked On Angels, we're going to be talking about how to defeat this Dodgers team and that Dodger bullpen. And just a reminder, the Angels play at 7:07 Pacific time. They're playing the Dodgers at the Big A. You can catch every pitch of the Angels hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Now, we'll get into that bullpen discussion and see who's got the better pen in 2023. We'll talk about that coming right up.
Locked On Angels is brought to you by the Game Time app. With the Game Time app, buying tickets is fast and easy. You can forget planning months in advance, which is really nice. Game Time has deals on tickets right up until the day of the event. You can get exclusive flash deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, theater, and more. The Game Time app guarantees that you will get the best price or also get event cancellation protection, which is really great. On the Game Time app, you can buy tickets in a matter of seconds, 2 taps and you're set. You can see the images of your seats before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. Tickets are sent directly to your phone, don't have to dig through your email. And if you find tickets in the same section and in the same row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Grab tickets without all the stress with the Game Time app. Download that app right now, create an account, and use our code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. There are some terms that do apply. Again, create an account and then redeem $20 off with our code LOCKEDONMLB. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Locked On Everydayers, join us tomorrow. We're sharing how Ohtani is going to stack up against the Dodgers on Wednesday night. And so we're going to get into a preview of that, what he needs to do to get the Halos a win while he's on the mound. Hey, the Angels are playing those same Dodgers at 7:07 Pacific time. Catch every pitch of the Angels hometown broadcast tonight on SiriusXM with the SXM app. Just search Angels.
The Freeway Series starts tonight against the Dodgers, and currently we sit at 41-33. We're in second place in the AL West, and then the Dodgers are 39-33. They're in third place in the NL West. Johnny, how about that? And if the playoffs started today, both the Angels and Dodgers would be in. That's beautiful music to my ears. The Angels actually lead the regular season series 73-64. Their largest victory, 13-0, way back in 2004. John, weren't you just born? And then their largest, the largest Dodger victory was 16-3 in 2006. I was just born. Dodgers are actually on a 6-game winning streak right now against our Halos. And so tonight's game is a chance to break that streak. And Johnny, it's Reid Detmers against Clayton Kershaw. Kershaw's having a great season, 8-4, 2.95 ERA, 82 and a third innings pitched, 98 strikeouts, a 1.11 whip. He's 9-2 against the Angels with a 2.13 ERA in 15 appearances. And his last start against the Halos was last July the 15th. He went 8 innings, 1 hit, 6 Ks. Angels lost that game 9-1. John, they only scored 1 run, and they scored it off of a familiar name, Reyes Maranta. And
okay.
They got a run off of him. Here's maybe a reason why we lost 9-1. Here's who was in that lineup that night. Kurt Suzuki, Jonathan Villar, Michael Stefanik. He batted leadoff, Johnny. And Patrick Sandoval started this game, really struggled, only went 4 2/3 innings. So that's who we're up against tonight, Clayton Kershaw. John, Reid Detmers is pitching, and he's actually struggled against the Dodgers, right?
Yeah, he's 0-2 with an ERA of 9.35, 11 strikeouts in 2 appearances against the Dodgers. His last start against them was June 15th of last year, 3 2/3, 4 hits, 4 runs, 3 walks, only faced 18 batters, Mike. They lost that game 4-1 in the lineup that day. Matt Duffy,
Gross.
Juan Lagares, and your favorite, Tyler Wade.
Yay, Tyler Wade. John, Detmers is on the upswing, though. And he did have a pretty good start against Texas. It was the only game that they lost, but it wasn't his fault. 6 innings, 3 hits, 1 run, 3 walks, and 8 Ks through 96 pitches. He left the game tied at 1, and then Jimmy Herget came in and gave up two home runs, which really was awful. They were back-to-back home runs. And
Jimmy's
down. Reid actually did really well in this game. He's been struggling with that third time through the order. This is an incredible stat, John. 1.271 OPS teams have against Reid the third time through the order. Yikes. And in that game against Texas, Reid got into some trouble that third time through. Bases were loaded, 1 out. Nevin left him in because we were really overusing the bullpen. They were tired. And then Reid struck out the next 2 batters, Josh Young and Jonah Heim, which I love watching Jonah Heim strike out against the Angels. And then he got out of the inning. And one of the things that he said about that game was that he had a better feel for his slider, which has actually been something that he's thrown more in his last 2 starts, a total of 11 and 2/3 innings pitched with 2 runs. Here's what changed, John. Detmers actually changed the angle of his wrist when releasing the pitch. And this is, here's what's interesting. This is the same thing they worked on when he went to AAA last year. They changed the angle of his wrist when he was throwing the slider. And he can get into a habit of maybe not having the right angle and not snapping it off, right? Don't I sound like a pitcher? Not snapping it off. And they had to correct that last year. And that's what happened with Buddy Carlisle. They saw something. That's what they saw. And so when Reid was struggling, he said, I'm sitting in the dugout and I'm thinking, man, I gotta figure this out. And he said, I wonder if it's what Carlisle was talking about. I wonder if it's my slider. And it ended up being the slider. And then he went back out when he was loading the bases and had to get out of that inning. And he threw 3 straight sliders to Jonah Heim, and he swung and he missed on all 3 of them, John.
Yeah, he did. It's funny to me. It's funny to me, Mike, because it's great that Reid remembered that from Buddy Carlisle.
Yeah.
Does the AAA coaching staff not talk to the major league coaching staff? Because you'd think that Matt Weiss.
No, nobody can talk to anybody. John Carpino said nobody can talk to
anybody. John Carpino said nobody can talk to anybody. All shut down all lines of communication.
Yeah, we're using pigeons now.
How can Reid be successful? That got me. How can Reid be successful against the Dodgers? He's got to be consistent with that slider grip, Mike. He's got to make sure he keeps that wrist consistent so that the hitters stay off balance. Another thing, and this is what I like to see, last time out, 96 pitches through 6 innings pitched. That's pretty good pitch efficiency. I know ideally you'd love to get a guy the 7th inning, whatnot, but for as hard as it's been for Reid Detmers to get to the 6th inning this season, I think that is perfect. 96 pitches, got through 6 innings, got to do it again. Don't waste any time. Make your pitch, get the swings and misses that you need, because he's got a good whiff rate, Mike. He gets swings and misses on his stuff. The other thing, Mike, is the changing of speeds. To throw that slower slider is a more effective slider at the end of the day. But it doesn't mean he can't throw it hard either, because you can mix up your pitches like that. I think that's a very effective way of doing that. So in order for Reid Detmers to have success, have a consistent slider grip, mix those pitch speeds, and don't waste time. Be efficient, get through your 6 innings pitched, and shut down those Dodgers.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Now, Johnny, here's what's really interesting about the Dodgers in 2023 and Dodger fans in 2023. They're having to suffer the way that Angel fans have had to suffer for the last 10 years.
Just their over here drinking my tea.
Their bullpen is actually not good. And so we've got some stats here, John. They're the 2nd worst bullpen in Major League Baseball in terms of ERA, just above the Oakland A's. How about that?
How about that?
So 5.04 ERA. They're 29th in the league. They have a 260 batting average against, 1.3 whip. That's 24th in the league. 101 walks is 12th. So they're kind of right in the middle. 38 home runs. They're tied with the Blue Jays right now. Johnny, who are some of the who's some of the players in this bullpen right now?
Well, the Dodgers have had so many pitching problems up and down the rotation,
which is so weird. They've never had that all of a sudden.
Well, but they have a bunch of young guys, but they've had guys that they've signed over the years, and then they took that flyer on Noah Syndergaard, and they all thought, well, Syndergaard will figure it out. It's the Dodgers pitching lab, and that didn't happen.
Meanwhile, Mickey Moniak's playing pretty well.
So I looked into it. Jack Harris, who used to write for the Angels as a beat writer, he's at the LA Times, and he covers the Dodgers, and he wrote about some of their pitching woes, specifically in the bullpen. First up is Evan Phillips, and he's actually doing really well this season, Mike. He's 1-2. He's got a 2.28 ERA, 28 games. He's got 7 saves, so he's kind of become the sort of closer. 27.2 innings pitched, 33 strikeouts. Listen to this whip, 0.795 whip. So he's keeping guys off base. He's been a part-time closer, a part-time fireman, as Jack Harris put it, because he's putting out fires, and they go to him when they need a reliable arm. But Mike, just like you and I talked about earlier this season, when we said, who's going to be the bridge to Matt Moore and Jose Quijada and Carlos Estevez, who's going to get from our starter to our core relievers who get us through the game, that's what the Dodgers are running into, because you can't just get to Evan Phillips every single time. Brusdar Graterol, who, has electric stuff.
Yeah.
Jack Harris said he's hardly getting swings and misses. He ranked 366th out of 383 qualified pitchers with a 16.5 whiff percentage. Dang. So not great.
Yeah.
Caleb Ferguson, who's got a 3.46 ERA, and Victor Gonzalez, who's got a 3.66 ERA. They're both lefties, but he said they faltered in late game, high pressure situations. Then you've got Yency Almonte, a 6.30 ERA, and Alex Vesia, an 8 ERA. He said they've both backslid after ascending into key roles last year. Inconsistencies in their execution of breaking pitches allow opponents to sit on their heaters. So you just got to watch out for the fastball with those guys. And then Shelby Miller is part of this bullpen. He's got a 2.40 ERA. He's been pretty good. He's been their Jaime Barria in a sense, like middle innings, mop up, end of the game, kind of using him wherever you need him. I didn't realize, Mike, that he's been relieving since 2019. He was with the Rangers when he went from a starter to a reliever. So, Mike, I think there's a couple of keys here, and maybe you and I can list them off. But if you want to get to this bullpen early and beat them up, you've got to get to Clayton Kershaw early. And we all know that he can go deep into a game, right? But there are some things that I identified, and I shared those with you. Let's share them with our Lockdown Everydayers.
Yeah, so the last two teams to get Kershaw out early were the Rays and the Cardinals, interestingly enough.
Before the fourth inning, actually.
Which is really interesting. Here's how they did it. They got his mistake sliders, a pitch he throws more than his fastball, and the slugging this year on the slider, John, 354, the expected 396. So they have to crush the mistakes of that slider. They have to go after that. But they also, John, have to crush the mistake fastballs too, right?
Exactly, yeah, because he has a tendency to throw him right down the middle at 91 miles an hour. You've got to take advantage of that. Now, listen, people still strike out on his curveball. They still strike out on his slider. But when he makes a mistake, you can take advantage of that. And because the Angels have such a attack the zone philosophy, I hope that they have a good read on his pitches, because they're going to need that in order to take advantage of getting Kershaw out of there early. And look, in the games where he did get knocked out early, he was doing things that were very Kershaw-esque as the game started. Ground outs, strikeouts on the curveball and the slider. But the Angels can't let that get to them. They can't let that overwhelm them, because, yes, he will come out and he will look like Kershaw of old. He'll look like the MVP Kershaw. But this is a Kershaw that's prone to make mistakes. And so if they'll get their chance to do damage, they just can't let Kershaw overwhelm them and then get into cruise control, right? They can't let him settle in. And so, again, expect some Kershaw-esque things to happen. At the same time, look for those mistake pitches.
Yeah, we're going to get both Reid and Kershaw doing the high stretch before that's going to be kind of fun to watch. So what I'm hearing from you, John, and just looking at the stats and looking at the metrics here, this 2-game series is going to come down to pitching, specifically, I think, bullpen performance. I think starters' length is going to matter. So Reid, he's got to get 6 innings at least tonight. I know that they had the day off on Monday, so the bullpen should be pretty rested, but getting 6 innings would be fantastic. Man, if he could get into that 7th inning, that would be even better. And the other piece is, don't these games always seem like they come down to some of those late inning hits? And I think that the Angels have shown to be a pretty good late inning team. And then with Ohtani being Ohtani, he's playing out of his mind, right? And then Trout heating back up, that actually might be a good indication as to where the Angels offense might be. And one thing about Trouty is that we've seen him really rise up against some of those really hard pitchers. I think of Chris Sale from years ago, and even Kershaw, he's been able to find a way to get to him. And so I think the Angels got to get to him early. I think the Angels have to get to the bullpen early. And then I think that Reid Detmers has to really stretch this game in order to be successful. So I'm going to predict, Johnny, that I'm going to go out on a limb here. I'm going to say that the Angels actually get both games and sweep the Dodgers. It's only 2 games, but sweep the Dodgers. Wouldn't that be fantastic? Get them while they're down. They've been struggling, and to be able to get 2 games and move up in the wild card standings would be fantastic. So I'm going to say the Angels get both games. What are you going to say?
You know what? On Saturday, I thought the loss to the Royals was the most embarrassing loss of the day, and it turns out it wasn't, because the Giants beat the Dodgers 15-0.
Yeah.
The Giants swept the Dodgers, so they're down on their luck right now, Mike. And I think that we can also take both games. And I think that, again, if they can get to Kershaw in the ways that you and I talked about, then you have Ohtani on the mound on Wednesday against these guys. I mean, we have all the momentum in the world after that road trip, and they're coming off a terrible road trip where they're still trying to figure things out and get it together. And again, we have a much better bullpen right now, and has been consistently much better than the Dodgers. They got to go to the bullpen sometime. You just can't let them have Kershaw go 8 innings strong and then get to their closer, Evan Phillips. You can't let that happen. So again, I think we can take both. Dodgers down on their luck. Angels trending up, baby.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Remember, the Angels do play the Dodgers at 7:07, kind of a late game tonight. You can catch every pitch of the Angels' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just search Angels.
It's the traffic, Mike. You gotta anticipate the Anaheim, Los Angeles traffic. So people coming from LA, it's going to take them an hour and a half to get from LA to Angel Stadium. So that's what I'm thinking is going on. Hey, give us a follow at Locked On Angels on Twitter and at Super Halo Bros on Twitter and Instagram. And if you're on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps us out. Thank you to the 5,000 plus who have already done so. We really appreciate it. Comment below the video. If you're on the audio side, come on over to YouTube and comment and get in on the conversation as well. We'd love to hear from you. Mike, what do we have on deck for tomorrow's show?
We're going to talk about Shohei Ohtani because he's going to be pitching. He got moved up. They moved the rotation around a little bit. He's not going to actually get moved up days, but they moved some things around. Love it. I'm glad that he's pitching against the Dodgers. And we're going to talk about how he stacks up against the Dodgers and what he needs to do to lead the Halos to victory. That's tomorrow on Locked On Angels.
One thing I forgot to mention earlier is we've got the full bullpen available for these 2 games. So use every good piece that you have to win these 2 games.
Stevis has to be in there both. Plus, you get Thursday off. So why not just burn them out?
Yes, go all in. Push your chips in. All right, friends. Until tomorrow's show, we'll be back here with more Locked On Angels. Until then, my name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Thanks for being here with us, and we'll see you back here tomorrow.